Oh man, welcome to Test, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. As you guys do know, we have the Champions Chess Tour final going on. So we have none other than Wesley So versus Hikaru Nakamura. You know, both very tough guys. You know, they go back and forth. You know, sometimes it's So, sometimes it's Hikaru. On chess.com, it's a lot of Hikaru. I'm not sure if he's jumping into the title Tuesday today. It's still kind of early to him over there in Cali, so he probably has enough time to play it or whatever. But yeah, so you know, like I said, this is round 4, game 6. So this is the final game between these two for this match. And as always, smart people in the Philippines, I would say mabuhay to you. Maligayang pagdating sa mga chess, ladies and gentlemen. Kamusta na aking mga kaibigan? Maraming salamat po sa nanonood aking mga video. Appreciate you guys very much for checking my stuff out. And I want to say salamat ulit po sa nanonood aking mga video. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by, as always. And if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. I didn't even, okay, I guess I'm gonna get that as we I'm gonna wing it. So we got D4, or we got E4, sorry, E5, knight comes to F3, we see knight to C6, and then we do see D4. And this is immediately known as the Scotch game, and then we can get into like little different variations. So we do see pawn takes D4, knight takes D4, we have knight to F6, and we have the Scotch game, the Schmidt variation. It's kind of similar to like a 4 knights. I mean, of course, if the knight was to come here, you'd have kind of like a 4 knights type situation. But we do see knight taking C6, and then pawn taking C6. And it might look kind of strange to you guys, like, why would you take this way? It's pretty much, about equal to take with either one. It's not quite the same as like a situation where the bishop has given itself up. And you're trying to open your own bishop. You always have the opportunity to push these pawns and kind of start getting them rolling. So you do in this particular case want to kind of capture towards the center. So we do have E5. Queen comes to E7, just pinning that pawn down. We do see queen up to E2, unpinning the pawn. Knight comes to D5. We see H4. Wesley So says, man, we're not drawing this game, bro. Like, I'm gonna either win or lose, so you gotta admire that. So we got A5, we got C4, knocking this knight somewhere. Knight comes back to B6. We do see knight to D2, and then we have the novelty of the game, which is G6. And G6 actually probably to some of you looks kind of weird because it kind of seems like it gives white, kind of what it wants. I mean, it was kind of throwing his pawn out there, hoping that it could get some type of a hook, and so like it just kind of seems like H5 is just like something that's really nice that's given to white. It kind of is, but I mean, it's not so crazy strong of a move. A really nice move in this position is actually knight to E4. And then after the pawn would be taken, you'd be following it up with knight to F6 with check. And then because the queen is pinned, you have to move the king. So, you're kind of giving up a pawn for, messing the opponent's king up. But we do see H5. Bishop comes to G7. We see knight to F3. Making sure that we protect this pawn because it is hit twice. We have queen over to B4. And this is a little bit annoying because you don't really want to cover with this bishop because the queen is going to be taken on B2. So you do see king over to D1. Bishop comes to A6. And you can see there is a pretty crazy amount of pressure on this pawn. You kind of have like moves that are possible like rook to H4. Even sliding the queen over to C2. And then trying to see if we can knock the the queen out of the way. We do see B3. That's one of the best moves in the position, just protecting the pawn. And we have castles by black. And I mean, as you can kind of see, it's crazy because white is actually in a really good position. And mostly it's because of this move. We see H6, and now the bishop doesn't really have anywhere to go but go back. And so white has kind of inconvenienced black just a little bit, disconnected the rooks. But, I mean, the white king is still really stuck in the center of the board. You definitely, have to, play with some finesse as white, So this forces white to definitely have to start playing in a certain way. So we do see knight to G5. I mean, it's the most logical move, one of the most logical moves. you know, because you are just attacking this undefended pawn. So, you know, it goes down to like chess principles. Queen comes back to e7, you know, protecting f7. You do see rook up to h3. So, I mean, like I say before, you know, this is definitely not bad play at all by white. This is actually very good. But, like, if you're beginning or you're even maybe, you know, getting up to intermediate and you're trying to, like, kind of, like, study some master games and see how you need to play, like, don't follow this game. Because, I mean, we got the little rook lift over here. The king is dead stuck in the center of the board. You know, like, this bishop is stuck. I mean, so it's like, even though it is great, you definitely have to have a lot of experience and knowledge of the game of chess to be able to play out of these positions. We do see d5. Pawn takes d6 on passant. And then we do see queen over to d7. We see king over to c2. And like I said, I mean, it looks kind of dangerous. But, I mean, this bishop is actually deprived from coming onto this diagonal. So that is one of the benefits that white has in their position. We do see bishop takes d6. We see rook over to d3, just trying to pin this bishop down. And then we do see rook h to e8. Queen comes up to f3 because, you know, why not, you know, throw a little attack on this pawn. And really one of the only things that black can actually do is go f5 because you do have double threats. I mean, you are immediately threatening this pawn with the queen, but you also are, you know, if you don't move the pawn out of the way, you are threatening this pawn. So you really don't want to have to move the rook all the way back because you are going to be looking at some nasties here. So, like I said, we do see f5. And we have actually reached a point in the game that if you do want to guess the move for white, you know, there's a really nice, very strong move in the position for white to play. Go ahead and stop the video and try to guess that. Okay, cool. So what we actually saw in the game, which was not the ideal move, the move was actually a little passive, unfortunately, was actually bishop to e3. It does develop the piece, but it doesn't really put a lot of pressure on black. It doesn't really threaten much. I mean, black is still kind of able to have a very comfortable position and play some really nice moves. And so, you know, we saw Nakamura go c5. You know, this is just pretty clear. I mean, we're looking at trying to bring this bishop over on an active diagonal. So, you know, white is in a little bit of pressure. We saw bishop up to e2 and then queen sidestepping the, you know, being on the same file as this rook. So that's what we actually saw in the game. But if we back up, after we saw f5, something that you always want to try to think about. You know, this is one of the key features of the position. This rook is, you know, attacking and, you know, pinning this bishop down to the queen. And there aren't any good discoveries or anything. I mean, because, you know, this white king is on a light square. So, you know, one of the best things to do is to play aggressively as possible and actually go bishop to f4. You know, this is just adding extra pressure onto the queen. And, you know, the queen can't really move anywhere because this pawn is going to be on pre. And then you can just kind of just, you know, sneak away like this, you know, and then you're attacking this pawn. So, you know, you would most likely see c5, just protecting the pawn and also giving that diagonal to be open for the bishop. Rook A would come to d1. And so you can see that, I mean, there's just an insane amount of pressure on this bishop. And then once we see bishop to b7, queen would come over to g3. And then you basically go into a bunch of trades, but white is going to end up winning a pawn in the exchanges. Bishop takes f4, rook takes d7, bishop takes g3, rook takes d8 with check. We see, you know, the clearing of the rooks with checks. King goes to d8, pawn takes g3. And then, I mean, this is very beneficial because there is nothing that can possibly protect the h7 pawn. And you guys can see that this pawn is very close to promotion. So after we see maybe king to e8, trying to make sure we get into the square of that pawn, you know, knight is going to be taking on h7. And you can see that the position is really nice for white. But this is something that's really kind of hard to see. This is really foreign to the game. But like I said, we did see the bishop coming up to e2, queen going over to e7. And then as a result, we do see queen over to h3. King slide steps over to b8 because, you know, at the moment the pawn was pinned. So we want to get out of the way of that pin. Also, you know, we might want to kind of move this bishop back, which is what we actually see in the game. We got g3 and then we see bishop to c8. And this is an immediate threat. I mean, you have to kind of move this queen somewhere because you're going to be looking at f4 and you're just going to be winning an entire piece because the bishop is going to attack the queen. So you do have to go somewhere. And we actually see queen down to h1 in this position. And this does allow f4 anyway, which is a very nice and accurate move that Nakamura sees in this game. It doesn't have quite the same ring to it as the pawn moving when you're discovering an attack on the queen, but it is very, very tough to meet. And it's pretty it's pretty nasty. We do see f4, pawn takes f4, and then we see bishop takes f4. And even though it doesn't look that bad, this is actually the point in the game that Wesley So does resign the game. So, Hindi. No. Yes, he resigned the game in this position. I mean, the computer gives it as -4. So it gives, you know, black being up 4 whole points positionally as far as the chess engine is concerned. But to try to translate that into, you know, what type of situation that you would be in, let's just take a look at a couple different variations you could possibly go from here. And I mean, every single variation I'm about to show you is what the computer is suggesting. And some of them look really kind of dumb. You're thinking like, why would I play this way? But there really isn't much better. So if we just go like with the strongest move in the position, and this is the move that allows black to have +4. All of the other ones give black much more. Queen to h4. You know, we see bishop taking g5, and then queen taking g5. After queen takes g5, bishop takes g5. And then this just completely hangs the bishop. So we do see rook taking e2 a check, and then I mean, we're just going to play on from here. But I mean, you can see that white is down an entire piece right now. And this is the top variation from the computer. So if we back up, after we saw bishop takes f4, we also had knight to e4 as an option. But I mean, just look at that move. The queen and the rook are on it, and the computer wants to be sadistic and go bishop to b7. Like, it's not only bad enough that you could just take the piece if you want to. The computer wants to pin the piece down. Like, computers are mean, dude. So if we back up again, you know, after bishop takes f4, we also see rook down to g1, just trying to hold on to this knight. But this horribly fails to actually bishop to f5, you know, you're going to be losing the exchange. You know, there's just too much pressure. You know, bishop to f5 is actually a move that's possible in pretty much all of these different variations. It just so happens to not be the strongest move in some of these variations. So, yeah, it's pretty nasty to be playing. You know, bishop taking f4. You know, Wesley sat there for a little while, then he just said, man, forget it. I'm going to go ahead and just call it a day. So, I didn't go crazy too long. It was actually a pretty short game. I'll go ahead and get these good mornings done for my people in the Philippines. Maayong buntag, mayad na agahan, nainbeg na bigat, masento siya kabason, marhen na aga, buenos dias, maayong aga, mapia na uma, kapian kapu no dios, mayap a abak, mayad na aga, mapia agay, mapia kapa pizza, my big abu kla, marjan na buntag, maryam may nat, malpen na aga, kasanyangan si LB, salam, assalamu alaikum, merci to you. Makito tayo mamaya, paalam to my people in the Philippines, and I will see y'all next time.